Absolutely.
But okay, Vusi, I understand your point of you don't like the word the masses. And you say the masses perhaps don't want a solution to all of this, but can't you play a role? Can't you convince the masses in some way or another to see that they need to change or things can be better? Don't you see a role for yourself in all of this?
Yeah, a few things to say there, right? So let me just arc back. You know, if you study history and if you think about kind of the Middle Ages in Europe, for instance, that what we today describe as the masses would have then been referred to as peasants. And one of the reasons I'm careful about this word, the masses, is because I think, Donald, it robs you and I of the ability to see the kaleidoscope. We create this big block, we go masses, and we kind of lump everybody in. But when and one of the things that does is it robs them of their humanity. It robs them of their agency, frankly. And so, you know, I'm quite keen to, at a community level, a family level, I mean, let's have that conversation. What's happened to the decay of families?
Absolutely.
The very basis of how you build a country is you build a community. And the nucleus of a community is the family, right? That institution has been under attack for the past 20 years. And nobody has dared stand up and go, hold on, you can't destroy family because it has a cascade effect. And you see it in the moral degradation of South Africa. So I say that only to say that we have an opportunity, and I really do think of it as an opportunity to break down this block called the masses and to engage them at a values level. Because what you recognize is actually when you talk to people at a values level, we're almost completely aligned. If I removed demographics, age, background, education, qualification, and income, and I spoke to you about values, you'd find we're actually all aligned. We want a country that works. We want our kids and our loved ones to be safe, regardless of where they find themselves. You want to know that you're going to get good access to decent healthcare in the public sector. You want an education system that's going to prepare your children for the future of the world, not the past that we come from, right? At a values level. And you want to be treated like a decent human being. All of us do, right? So we're aligned at those values level. And we have an opportunity to tap into that. The second question was more direct. I am a believer and have been for my entire life. But my faith in Christ over the past 5 years has become increasingly more acute. I have surrendered my life to my Lord and Savior. There have been times in my life, Donald, particularly more recently, when the world was shut still and the only voice I could hear was the voice of my Creator. And so I have run away from this question a lot, to be completely honest, just because I'm a coward, if I'm honest. I don't want to stand in a stadium and sing a song or like gyrate and learn the latest dance. I don't want to go to a community that's downtrodden and make them promises I have no intention of meeting. I don't want to give out food parcels in exchange for a vote. I don't want to see my face on a T-shirt. I don't want to do it. To me, it's fake, it's wrong, it's disingenuous, and it's everything that's wrong with our society.
Vusi, I think you're assuming something. Wait, I must interrupt you here, okay?
Yes, sir.
What you are saying makes sense, right? But what about empowering the people that we are referring to, call them whatever name you like?
Yes, sir.
To find their own inspiration, whether it is religion or whether it is whatever that. What I'm saying is, you see, what you're saying seems to be what everybody else is doing. Isn't it about time we did something different?
Absolutely.
Look, let me ask you a completely off the bat question, right? When you were talking about the masses, your eyes were moving around. In your mind, what image did you have?
Sure. Okay. Carry on.
And was that image color or black and white?
It was color.
Right. Now we're talking. You see, when you interact, and I mean this sincerely, we don't have the time now. Maybe this is just an introduction. I hope we meet again. If a person realizes consciously that the movie that they're seeing in their mind drives their behavior, Your job's done. I've been in education for 40 years. I got awards and all kinds of things, right? The fact is, this moment when you realize, hang on a second, I got a movie in my head. This funny guy is asking me about it. For the first time, perhaps I've realized it's in color. That's when stuff happens. Not in the stadia and I mean, I'm just sharing this to shift the direction of the conversation to something more, what to us, because Leon and I, this is what we do. We work in that dimension, not in the stadium. And so the question is, and maybe for another time, I hope so, can we somehow put our heads together and influence, in my world, the subconscious representations of all the events that people have, which determine behavior?
I love that. And let me just jump in and let me tell you why I love it. I love that for this reason, right? And you've actually you've said something which has answered for me what I think is, to your comment earlier, Donald, South Africa's biggest Achilles heel. What we've allowed is we've allowed those who have the loudest, those who have the megaphone, those who have the loud halo, to create these archetypes in society.
Right.
So, anytime a potential leader emerges, society frames them in that archetype. And it puts them in a little box and it says, that's all you are. And we lose out on incredibly capable, talented people.
Yes.
Because they look a certain way, or they talk a certain way, or walk a certain way, or come from a certain background, right?
Yeah.
It's ironic to me, if not tragic, isn't it? That we are the generation that enjoys the fruits of people who said, I don't want to be treated as what I appear outwardly. And yet what we're doing is treating each other as what we appear outwardly. It's this cognitive dissonance to me is just the most extraordinary thing. But here we are. I love that comment. Thank you, Panache.
And okay, but just to be more specific, do you perhaps see a solution in terms of a new political party? Or some people, some political analysts, politicians like Dr. Corné Mulder, Professor R.W. Johnson, have called for a new popular front, like an umbrella organization that unites opposition parties. Do you see a solution perhaps in any of this?
You know, I'm well connected with some of the guys who walk the corridors of our political chambers. I'm smart enough to know that I'm completely underwater in that world. It's like I asked one of them yesterday, I said, so how do you swim with alligators? Because it's just, I mean, it's, you know, you're in the swamp, you can't see farther than your eye could stretch. And you're surrounded by this, and you're supposed to have an inspirational goal. And the direct answer to your question is, I'm not in, so in business where I operate, every solution starts with a strategy. All right. So let's have a strategy conversation. I don't believe that if you think about the political environment of South Africa as a marketplace, we need more fragmentation, right? So you've got this kind of bell curve, and then you've got this long tail. We don't need to add to the tail, right? That's the first. The second is, if you approach it as a strategy question, you've got an incumbent that is lethargic, right? You've got an incumbent that is also self-eroding, and you've got an incumbent that, as it appears now, seems fairly directionless.
So, sorry, Vusi, just for our audience, incumbent, you're talking about the ANC, just for clarity.
I mean, I don't want to put names on it, but so you know, you've got the bloc in power that is seized with all of these challenges. By the way, they all admit to this. You read any of their own policy documents, they're well aware of the challenges that they face. This is why they will have the year of the CADA and, you know, organizational renewal, and all of these things are an admission, tacit albeit, that, you know, guys, something has gone wrong here. So if I'm coming into the marketplace and I'm studying this marketplace, do I want to add to the tail? No. You know, market fragmentation, disloyal customer base, voter base, swings and shifts and changes, low economic growth. So it's not like I can grow off the top of a growing environment. So no, I don't want to add to the tail. But I've also got this incumbent where things are going wrong. Well, what this presents to me is, it says the following. It says that the number 2, number 3, and number 4 players are perfectly poised, if they play their cards right, to completely reshift the conversation. In political sciences, they call it a realignment, right? And I think South Africa's well positioned for that. I really well and truly do. And it might sound crazy, but it's not. You know, people forget that the National Party was swallowed by the ANC. They forget this, right? Or certainly what then became the new National Party, right? So I think when you cast your mind back and you read history, you realize it's actually not a far off idea that this alignment happening. My sense is that the parties who have already built brand equity, who have articulated a vision for themselves, and who've done some of the hard work on the ground, are the best positioned to take advantage of what's happening with the party that's in power right now. That isn't to say you couldn't mount a challenge as a completely new upstart. It is to say it would take considerable resources, and it would take a bolt of genius that would be hard to manufacture, and a coalition of factors falling together for it to work. So in my strategy brain goes, that's how that would play out. My citizen brain goes, can somebody just make it happen already? just like step get it done.
Vusi, out of curiosity, have the ANC ever approached you? Have they ever asked you for advice? Have they ever contacted you? Have you any dealings with the ANC?
That's a hard question to answer.
Besides the member of parliament that you met on the airplane.
The plane, yeah. I mean, it's that's a hard question to answer, because maybe give you a bit about my personal history and background. My grandmother, my mother's aunt, was deeply steeped in the ANC. She was in the ANC Women's League. She went to exile. There are members of parliament today. The first time I saw them, true story, they were washing dishes in my grandmother's kitchen. And they later have gone on to be members of parliament and run entire portfolios. So it's not that they have approached me. It's that it would be like my son approaching me. He doesn't need to. He's my son, right? We're familial. And that's the first comment to make. The second comment to make is, I also know at a human level, right, a lot of ministers and people in high office and public office. I know them personally. I've got their mobile numbers. You know, we bump into each other at events, or we're flying on the same plane, and you end up spending time, or you're invited to a cocktail, or these kind of things. So what I'm saying is that it's not that they're unaware that I exist or that we've never had dialogue. I think, Donald, the real question you're asking, and if you will allow me to answer it in this way, have they sought counsel? The answer to that question is that I don't know that they think they need to.
Exactly.
You hear it too in how they talk about the party, right? When they talk about how we need to self-correct. I don't believe that they believe they need to step outside of the guardrails of whatever policy framework and control and governance mechanisms they've created for the party to correct the party, right? It's you know, in a large organization, when things go wrong, you refer them to the disciplinary committee, right? And that's kind of what they have done. They've created committees to correct the institution. And I think that they are of the view that they have the depth of knowledge, they have the dexterity of imagination, and they have the reach and context to be able to self-correct. And the jury is out on whether or not they'll get that right. As a strategist, as a business person, and as a tactician, I will say the following to you. There aren't many examples of large organizations that have been incumbents, that have at a point in time enjoyed a near monopolistic level of competition with a huge amount of consumer equity and brand equity, who then began a decay that were able to self-correct. That doesn't happen. Typically what happens, something comes from outside that forces the correction. And I'm not sure that they have studied where they are using that framework.
Fascinating. Leon Panos, do you have any other questions?
Yes, I have an instant question.
I have one, but I will go last.
Okay. So what do you think is easier? And I'm stressing easier, not difficult, right?
Yes, sir.
To fix the ANC
Yes,
or
sir.
to fix the coalition?
Oof. Definitely fixing the coalition.
Okay.
Thank you.
And do you see yourself playing a role in that?
Well, let me add my question before he answers.
Jump.
You see, many years ago, as a young man, more or less your age, I was given the opportunity to answer the question, do you want to be the executive producer of Shaka Zulu? I didn't think for 1 second. Naively, I said yes. And then I realized, oh, Bliksem, what have I done?
Isn't that such a beautiful South African lexicon? Bliksem.
Yes.
I love it.
So that conducted me into a journey, a hero's journey, in which I had to discover that I don't need to be on front of the stage. I can be supportive of brilliant talent from behind the stage.
Yes, sir.
And so my question, adjacent to Panos's question, we think, or we feel, or I feel, let me speak for myself, that you are brilliantly positioned to be the producer of a new coalition.
Mark me present. I'm in. That I would do that without a second of thought. We spend a lot of time studying kings. Very few people study kingmakers. I'm in any project that's about creating a stage for the best and brightest amongst us to seize the moment. I'm in. And to be completely clear, I've gone past the stage in my life where I care what people think about my politics. I don't care. I'm not interested. And I do want to say, if you will allow me, Donald, in particular there are some watching this. Let's go back to that, example about the soccer team that you love and your whole family loves it. And after a couple of seasons and being relegated to the first division, then second division, and then no division, you go back to your dad and you go, I don't think we should support this team anymore. Right? There are some who will watch this for whom just the idea of getting involved in something that doesn't support that which they have traditionally grown up to support is almost treasonous, right? And so this is why you have, at oftentimes, the very low level of voter turnout, is because people go out far rather abstain and refrain from the political process than I would do support an alternative. And to those people, I want to say this. There are no passengers in a sinking ship. There's no such thing as I'm going to sit in the back and watch the ship sink and call me when it's all over. And if you're not looking at the data, Leon will tell you, Panosh will tell you, Donald, if you're not looking at the data, I don't know how to break this down to you. The ship is sinking.
Yeah.
So we no longer have the opportunity to abstain from the political process. That's done. You can't sit and watch from the sidelines. That's done. You can't do what you did because it's what you've always done. Those options are off the multiple choice. The only question for all of us to answer is not, do I get involved? It's where, with whom, and how. And for me, insofar as it's about best talent, best opportunity, seizing this moment, you wouldn't have to call me twice. I'm in, send me the GPS, I'll show up, and I'll be there to make sure that what we need to do gets done.
Well,
Amen,
awesome.
brother.
Thank you so much, Vusi. This has been so inspiring. This has been really an amazing discussion. Thank you so much for your time.
I'm humbled, and thank you. I hope we do this again. I'm really humbled
Yes,
to have had.
we too.